the most powerful designer drugs are the digital ones we use daily. And we get high off them. One touch, tap, like, scroll at a time. You know, just like tech creators want us to. Use digital without digital using you. Learn more at sync.ithra.com.
We acknowledge the traditional owners of country throughout Australia and recognise their continuing connection to land, waters and culture. We pay our respects to their elders past, present and emerging. Welcome to This Song Is Yours, a music podcast where we chat to a new guest each week, talk about their life and creative endeavours, and talk to them about some of the music they love. Our show works by chatting to our guests about music, but also getting them to make you a playlist of the songs they love. You can find the link to our playlist in the show notes for today's episode. I'm your host, Simon Fink, and welcome to episode 5. Our guests today are Beau and Casey from This Week in the Universe. They've recently released their new single, Light Years, and have a new EP coming out early 2021. In our episode today, we spoke to the brothers about jazz music and its involvement when composing electro music, their musical upbringing, and working with artists like Rule and Daniel Johns. Here we go. Our guests today are an electronic duo from Sydney, Australia. They're both well-respected musicians in the industry, with some of their titles including producer, composer, session musician, bandleader and songwriter. They've worked with artists such as Daniel Johns, Rule and Vera Blue. Please welcome to This Song Is Yours, Beau and Casey Golden from This Week in the Universe. Hi guys, how you going?
Hey Simon.
Hey Simon. Good. Thanks for having us.
Of course. Thank you very much for joining us today. Now, before we get to the new single, I'd like to ask how you guys got your start in music. Was it something that you got from your family and were your parents musical?
Yeah, we definitely. Like our mum's family is super musical. Like her dad and uncle were both, actually, and grandparents were all professional musicians, jazz people. And then both her brothers were also musicians. So our parents aren't actually, but there's a lot of music around in the family.
Yeah, we were kind of forced into playing piano as little kids, just because it was like, a cool educational thing to do from their perspective. And that kind of just became the further we got along and we kind of started enjoying playing music more so than the classical stuff that we started with, just kind of fell into it that way, I guess. And because our family were into it, we, I guess, didn't find it we just kind of found like a natural progression.
Yeah, it was kind of just always, you just did it, we didn't really have, I say we didn't have a choice. I don't mean it in like a horrible way. It just was just around and we did it.
You weren't forced to play the piano all day, every day.
No, exactly.
No, just Sundays.
Yeah.
Now, you're both quite well respected in your respective fields. Casey, I know that you're quite well known in the jazz world, and Beau quite well known in popular music as well. Was there ever a point when you were growing up that it kind of, I know you said you both got to start in classical, but where you thought you'd kind of both end up in jazz or both end up in pop, or did that ever cross over?
Yeah, I think I grew up playing jazz as well, and I studied jazz at uni, and I still love jazz as well. But I think just in terms of production, I was starting to get interested in production and those elements of music, and I found that part of music more exciting, which is maybe leaning towards the more kind of pop realm than jazz stuff for me.
Yeah,
similar to you.
Yeah. I think it was a bit weird, really, because our uncles and grandparents or grandfather and great uncle were all jazz musicians. And our mum is heaps into classical and jazz more than any other genre. So we weren't super, it's not like we were kept from it, but we were very exposed to jazz and classical as kids, and not so much pop. So there wasn't really much of a thought, I don't think, at least for me when I was a kid, didn't even consider it that maybe I'll be doing pop or rock gigs or something. And then you kind of just get into music as you do, just, you discover all this stuff. And so I guess if that answers your question.
Yeah, I kind of I kind of discovered soul music. I discovered soul music in high school, like Otis Redding, and all through the Blues Brothers, actually. It was like Otis Redding and James Brown, Aretha Franklin and all that kind of stuff. And then from that, it was kind of a progression from that into kind of like more modern soul stuff like Stevie Wonder. And then from that became kind of more in the popular music realm, I guess, for me.
I was going to say, with This Week in the Universe, it does seem to combine quite a few of the genres that you just mentioned. There are definitely some jazz elements to the arrangements on the songs. When did you guys originally get together and go, we should write this together and start an electro band?
Yeah, it was interesting. Yeah, I mean, Casey sent me, would have been 2016, Casey sent me this this thing he wrote, and he's like, I think this is really cool. What do you think? I don't think it's really appropriate for my jazz trio. Do you want to do something with it? And I thought it was really cool. I was like, this is awesome. And I just kind of mucked around. I had my studio set up at home, and I recorded a bunch of stuff and programmed some drums and did some kind of production stuff on it, sent it back to Casey, and you were like, oh, this is cool. And then you sent me another thing, and I did the kind of same thing, and then we got together, and it was kind of an accident in that respect where just some ideas you had that were kind of left of center, and ideas I had really no avenue to put them out at that point in time. We kind of found this cool electronic kind of mix of almost like prog rock and jazz and like pop and R&B mashed together, I guess. That's kind of how I kind of saw the beginning start.
No, it's definitely that. And also, like, we both like synths. Like, we're both right into that and have been for ages, like since we were teenagers, really. And never, I mean, you use it on gigs and just, muck around and it comes up, but never had like an avenue to really just like have fun with it and just mess around with them. So we did, and that was another big part, I think, because we would hang out and just play with synths all day. Working on this music, and it's kind of like that was a really inspiring thing too. I think that kind of helped the project along.
Definitely, the music itself from the band does have almost like a theatrical bent to it in terms of like some of the synths and the arrangements. And I know that you guys do cite 80s movies as a bit of an influence as well for the band. Have you guys ever thought about scoring for a film? Or
yeah, absolutely. That's definitely something we talk about all the time, or scoring like a video game or something like that. I think at the moment we've been so focused on this new EP, working on it since kind of late 2018. 2 tracks are coming, which you've heard, obviously. I'm not sure. We're still not sure if they'll be on the EP or what the EP will really be, because we've got so much material we've been finishing this year. But it's so focused on that. I think when we finish that, that'd be definitely something we kind of maybe look towards for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
I was going to ask about the new singles in the sense of the release format, only because you guys released an album last year and then you've got 2 new songs this year. Was the plan always to release new music this year, or was it kind of forced by the pandemic, or is it just that you guys have, as you said, quite a wealth of songs?
Yeah, it was weird because we were in March. We were in LA in March working on this EP, and we always planned, like, from 2019, we're going to go to LA, we're going to finish the EP, we'll collaborate with some people we had sorted out over there, and then we'll do like a bunch of live shows. We'll release next single, live show here, live show there, do a bit of touring, and then the EP. But obviously that kind of all went a bit to the wayside with the pandemic. So it was more so we were just like, I want to get this stuff out. We're so excited about it. But also want to keep the EP, just, I guess, the luxury of having 2020 being like it is. We've had time to kind of go over and just, I guess, finesse to the point where, some would say insanity, the way, but it's been good. It's been really good in terms of that, because the detail, we like to kind of spend the production. We don't really like to really skimp on anything and feel like we could have done better. So that's been a good part of it. But I think that we really wanted to have live shows as part of the release of the EP, and hopefully that's something we can do 2021 when it comes out.
Yeah, we had, because we like Beau said, we have a bunch of stuff and the EP that's almost finished. So like the plan was to have a bunch of singles and the EP out probably like around now, really, but the pandemic kind of put that on hold and messed up a bunch of other things. It didn't mess up; it just put on hold. But like, in that happening, we kind of had more time, like Beau said, but then also managed to hook up a few things that will hopefully come to light on future releases, which wouldn't have happened without the pandemic. So the plans have changed just for kind of a few different reasons, but all positive really from this point, I think.
Of course. Now, you guys were no strangers to recording remotely before this. I think when recording the last record and these singles, Casey, you were living in London?
Yeah.
Have you guys found that the pandemic has brought a lot more people to the table in terms of remote recording?
Yeah, I think so. We found it quite hard working remotely when Casey was in London, just because the time difference and the way we work together. We'd write these really long emails back to each other with like 30, 40 plus tweaks every day, and it'd just be really punishing. But now, like you said, like I think everyone's kind of in the same boat with having to kind of think differently about how to make music. So we've got some cool guests we wouldn't have had. One based in the UK, one based in the US. That was actually surprisingly smooth working with, and it was a great result. And we were super excited with how easy and musical it was when we did it. So that was really nice versus thinking, it's going to be hard and having to go back and forth and 1,000 emails and Zoom calls and everything. But that's been really nice. It's been good. I think everyone's kind of just prepared because they can't tour to do stuff like that.
Yeah, I feel like artists kind of are settling in more now and realizing that this might be a bit more long-term in terms of recording remotely.
Yeah, absolutely.
With the new single, Light Years, you've collaborated with the artist Golds, whose vocals feature on the track. How did this come about? How did you guys get in touch?
Yeah, so Golds, I'm actually married to Golds. It's my wife, Amali. So that, in terms of convincing her to do it, it wasn't too hard. But Golds was a project that she started maybe a year and a half ago and put out an EP on Spotify and everywhere else, which is really cool. I'm super proud of it. We wrote it together and I produced it with her. And that was a funny song because we actually wrote with another artist, which will be on the EP next year. And it was an awesome experience. And we're talking, we spoke to them like, we should do another track. This would be great. Started writing this kind of powerful, Casey suggested this kind of powerful, like slow. Like
a power ballad but not with the connotations that come with that.
Yeah. So we started writing this really kind of big kind of, synth heavy kind of thing in like a late afternoon. And as we were doing it, Amali just walked past the studio and like opened the door, like, what's that? I want that. And we thought, yeah, absolutely. Like, can't say no.
Yeah.
And yeah, so she just, I think, brought this amazing, like, beautiful, powerful sadness to it, which is kind of evident in her music as well. But especially on this track, I think because of the tempo, you don't often hear singles, like slow kind of tempo singles these days, which we thought was a kind of a bit of a wild choice as well. But yeah, she was awesome. And with the chorus production and the way we did it affected her vocal, that was kind of an organic thing as well, where we were all of us sitting in the studio kind of thinking what would be kind of a left of center chorus approach. And that's what we kind of came to.
Yeah. Yeah. It all happened pretty quickly, actually, this track for us. So, yeah.
When you guys are recording tracks, I know you said you've been working on some of the songs for a little while. Usually, and I know each one is always different, but with how intricate your songs are in the production, how long do you usually find it takes from start to finished product for a song?
Yeah, I mean, I think that like Light Years was quite a quick process comparatively to other stuff we've got in this new release next year.
Yeah, I mean, it always takes it takes a long time. I think this Light Years it was almost finished really quickly, like within like probably about 2 weeks or something. But then the last 5% or whatever you want to call it probably took like another 2 months, 3 months, something like that.
Yeah,
just like we weren't like working intently on it, but it's kind of coming back to it every so often and thinking about it and recording bits and pieces and we spent ages mixing that one too. But yeah, like I feel like we always want to kind of just like, I like the idea of doing something and then just not just putting it aside and then coming back a while later and deciding if you still think it's good. And that kind of happens naturally with this because they're both pretty crazy about, attention to detail.
Yeah. Yeah, there's some tracks on one of the tracks, particularly on the EP. We wrote kind of August 2018. It would have been, and it went through probably 3 or 4 different verses, 3 or 4 different choruses. The artist we collaborated with is amazing, and he was super attention to detail focused as well. So it kind of came like we could have really had 3 or 4 songs out of that one writing session or 2 writing sessions we did for it. And then production-wise, there was 9 mixed revisions, 10 mixed revisions before we kind of finished it.
Yeah, it's a relief when we finish.
It's a relief, yeah.
With both of you having your respective side projects as well, did you ever find yourself writing or composing a lyric or melody and think that this could be repurposed for the band, or you thought, no, I'll keep that for my own side project?
Yeah, I think so. Not so much. I mean, I don't know, like I tend to write stuff in like I'll write a bunch of stuff over like a month or something, and I'll have like a terrible time. I mean, it's good to get the result, but I'm like get really obsessive when I'm doing it, so I kind of have to do it and then just not write for a while. Like still work on the music, of course, but kind of have the basic form or harmony or whatever down. So I'll kind of write heaps of stuff almost without judgment, and then be like, oh, this would be cool for that. This would be cool for that. Maybe this isn't very good, and kind of think of it that way. So yeah, I guess. I
definitely like to say we definitely have more material than we need whenever we write something, and we often have to go back through like hundreds and hundreds of tracks of production we've gone through to be like, oh yeah, that was awesome, I love that idea. However, it's not really the best choice for this song, or it clashes with the vocal, or it doesn't make the chorus as big as we want, and kind of filter it that way versus not having enough ideas. So I think, I like to kind of put everything into every kind of song and work backwards, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and it sort of flows naturally. Like we probably have at the moment, like we've got a bunch of finished stuff that hasn't been released yet, but also stuff we're working on. There's probably about 12 songs, but then we're only really close. We're kind of like intensely working on like maybe 4 of them, and the other ones just we've got kind of there, but we haven't worked on them for a while, and we're just kind of like, we got to finish these ones, and then those ones will kind of naturally fall into place. It's kind of just how it's gone the last couple of years, which has worked well. So yeah, there's definitely a lot of material.
The most powerful designer drugs are the digital ones we use daily. And we get high off them. When touch, tap, like, scroll at a time. Just like tech creators want us to. Use digital without digital using you. Learn more at sync.ithra.com.
This season, Instacart has your back to school. As in, they've got your back to school lunch favorites like snack packs and fresh fruit. And they've got your back to school supplies like backpacks, binders, and pencils. And they've got your back when your kid casually tells you they have a huge school project due tomorrow. Let's face it, we were all that kid. So first, call your parents to say I'm sorry, and then download the Instacart app to get delivery in as fast as 30 minutes all school year long. Get a $0 delivery fee with your first 3 orders while supplies last. Minimum $10 an order. Additional terms apply.
Are you guys looking forward to when you can take some of that material on the road and start playing live shows again?
Oh yeah, we absolutely had a great plan in our heads, and before this all happened, about how we're going to do it, and we had the whole setup and quite an elaborate like setup of a live show with multiple keyboards and all MIDI synced and doing it in a cool way. I think I said it. I was saying to you the other day, like doing it in a way that's still in the like indie electronic world and sonically as big as possible, but also as live as possible. Like when you see the show, you're not just seeing like the press play, here's a track show, like a lot of pop artists out there now. You're seeing a show that's very much like unique to each night, and it's still us playing as much as possible, and it feels like it just feels like you're actually there rather than listening to the record and slightly amended like other live shows that people are doing. But yeah, I think when we can get out there, it's going to be great.
Yeah, it'll be good. Like it's been over the pandemic, we've been working on the setup. I mean, not so much. I mean, actually, yeah, doing our live show, but also just kind of how we make our individual kind of rigs work, which has been really helpful. I think, like having time, because it just takes forever to. You got to constantly changing out keyboards or effects or whatever you're using. So it's feeling really good now. It's going to be awesome because it's taken this long to get there, but now I feel good that it's going to be really cool when the time comes.
I feel like a lot of big electronic shows kind of have, as you said, it's a big production, but they're very structured in the way that they work. With both of you having a background in jazz, do you think that there'll be an element of improvisation in the show, or do you think that it will be kind of more structured?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a fine line. Like, I'd like it to feel like it's structured in the sense that, it's a 45 whatever hour show where all these, you're hitting all these certain marks, but there's room in the set to kind of stretch and kind of take in different directions, and be improvised enough to like keep ourselves entertained and it to be like a bit wild and unpredictable, but within some kind of parameters we can keep in check.
Yeah, I think obviously we want some improvised element in there. I mean, definitely, but not so much like let's stretch out and do like a wailing solo or something, but more so like I like the idea of, and the way I've set up, both of us have set up a library is like, I'm going to play this gig tonight. This would be fun to use this for this gig. Like it's not the same setup every time. It's kind of like we can mess around with it depending on how we're feeling. And yeah, like Beau said, have some kind of open sections and have some like kind of stuff that can kind of go anywhere,
Of course. Casey, you're quite well known in the jazz music scene over in the US and the UK. How do you find those two jazz scenes compared to the one that we have here in Australia?
I guess like there's a lot of the main thing I guess is that they're just a lot bigger in those places than there are here. So you just I was in London for a couple of years and heaps of awesome, like the jazz scene there's really good and really big and heaps of great musicians. And it was fascinating to me when I was there because like most jazz musicians there, or maybe not, probably most, they're literally like jazz musicians. They just play jazz gigs and that's kind of their life, which seems like an obvious thing, but that was like mind-blowing for me because, here that doesn't really happen. Maybe for like, 5 people in the country or something. But most jazz musicians here have a lot of a bigger array of stuff they do just because of the nature of the scene. And I think that would be the main difference really, like you're a bit more kind of across everything here. But the standard, I would say, is still great here. So it is that part of it is quite nice because I realized being there, like, I love playing jazz, and like my own area that I occupy is of the jazz world I love doing. But if I was just going to do like straight ahead gigs all the time or something like traditional stuff, I would kind of tire of that, I think. And if there are people in the States and in England where that's the thing. It's like swinging standards 6 nights a week. And it's like, that's cool, but like, that's, I'm kind of glad that I have a bit more of a cross section of music I'm involved with living here,
Of course. I imagine it's a little bit, for lack of a better term, less rigid.
Yeah, for sure, yeah. But out of necessity, I think, more than anything, just because there's not as much happening here,
Now, Beau, you've worked with quite an array of musicians yourself. With This Week in the Universe, I imagine you've got more time you can put into this project and focus on. But I know that you've worked with artists like Lily Allen and Daniel Johns. What's the experience like when you've got limited time with these people and you've got to quickly learn their songs and learn how they work compared to the time and care you can put into your own songs and projects?
Yeah, I guess I've been doing a lot of this like session studio stuff and live work with artists like Daniel and over the years. So when I first started out doing that stuff, I was very stressed, and you got to keep, the whole industry by default is super last minute. It's the way the record labels work. So you're getting called like night before, the morning of, sometimes with like, here's a bunch of songs. I did a gig once with one artist years back who sent me like 18 songs the night before, and I get to the show the next day. It was like a 7-camera shoot with a 250 people audience, and I was just like, oh my God, what have I got myself into? And that kind of like level of anxiety, I feel like going through some of those really horrific moments, like growing up in that kind of thing when I first started out, have prepared me a lot better. So when I worked with Daniel was a bit of a luxury because he rehearsed for 4 weeks. It was kind of ideally how you'd run any kind of big touring pre-production. He was only doing 2 shows. They were pretty epic shows at the Opera House in Sydney, but we did 4 weeks of production, which was amazing. So we had the full staging, full everything, full gear, full text, full crew in rehearsals for a month. So that was great. But that's obviously an ideal situation that only people like Daniel, who has the kind of contacts, can pull off.
Yeah, I can imagine there are some luxuries afforded to him. Beau, you're also the music director for Rule.
Yes.
For those listening to this podcast that don't know what a music director does, can you help explain that role and what you do?
Yeah. So a music director is, I guess, responsible for a lot of stuff which is behind the scenes. The audience kind of comes to the show, and from everything from like putting the set together, arrangements of the songs, the musicians rehearsing their band, rehearsing the artists, getting the artists like comfortable, getting them kind of as comfortable as they are on stage as possible, running all of the track, conducting the band or running the band, cueing the band on stage. I guess the musical liaison point for everything essentially before the artist. So if you want to do any arrangement, I'll put it together. I'll chat with Rule. We'll kind of get something happening. I'll kind of I'll structure it, put it together. I'll get it to the band. We'll rehearse it. I'll run that kind of thing. And when you get to a live show, everything from like cues that I'll set up that'll have to be kind of relayed to like the lighting guys or the sound guys. I guess it's just everything that's the show kind of mechanics from a musical point of view. That's not the actual front man singing or the songwriting.
Yeah, of course. Are you guys happy to talk about your playlist?
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, you're actually the first duo that or 2 guests that we've had on. I'm curious how the playlist kind of decision-making went about. Was it that you guys were allocated a number of songs each, or did it together?
Yeah, we have a playlist on our Spotify of just tunes we're kind of vibing off at any given time. And we got a few off there, like maybe like 3 or 4 or 5 off there that we both kind of picked the representative of what we like listening to at the moment, or we're kind of inspired with, we're writing to. Other stuff you kind of came to me like, oh, how cool this track, and I'm like, yeah, I would never have thought of that track, but I love it. And
yeah, like we try to put it together. Like, I mean, the ones I came up with, I was trying to choose stuff that I really love and have had a big impression on me, but was somewhat relevant to this project as well. And I know that Beau has checked it out too, So yeah, it was definitely like we talked about wanting to put together rather than be like, here's my ones, they're your ones, you do with them, I'll do with this.
Yeah.
Nice, I like that. Now, I know I'm going to take a guess at this track and say that this might have been Beau, only because I think are you in your studio at the moment, Beau, today?
Yeah, we are.
I'm going to guess that the Prince track was your pick. I think there's a poster to your left or to your right on the wall.
Yeah, there's a Prince track.
Over here.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah. The Prince track was my choice. I love Prince. And Prince is hard because when people say they like Prince, it's kind of like he's got 39 records, plus every bootleg and live record out there. So there's so many eras of Prince, which is so great, but also so different. I chose this track, Baltimore, of Hit and Run Phase 2, which is his final album that he put out before he died. I think it was his 39th album. I think it was. Yeah, it was. And yeah, it's such an epic album, and I saw this tour in February, the year he died. I think it was, I can't remember what it was. 2017. It was just
2016.
Just him and a piano and a microphone. It was a piano and microphone tour, and it was insane. And I just thought, this guy's like, everything he's done from the moment he got signed is quite groundbreaking, whether you like it or not, sonically, and the musical choices he makes. And this is just such an epic record. He plays everything on the record like he was doing on his first record, except the horn section. And yeah, it's just hard. I think he's kind of, as a musician, he's hard to beat as someone who is so consistent and inspiring through the whole career.
And he does, like, Beau introduced me to that record maybe like a year ago or something, because I heard, obviously, was a Prince fan too, but I hadn't checked out the more recent stuff. But it's awesome. It's so good, and it's just like does stuff that's so like Prince-ish, but still seem really fresh. Like still big kind of production choices and arrangement choices, and forms, heaps of weird forms, which I'm into. So I just I think it's just awesome track, awesome record.
Yeah.
Definitely. I think when it comes to Prince, a lot of people look back at all the classics, but some of those more recent ones, even I think, is it Third Eye Girl or Third?
Yeah. The like little trio we had before. Yeah, that was wild. That was a great album too.
Another track that you guys picked was Justice, which when listening to the band, there is a bit of a Justice vibe, especially in distance around that breakdown kind of near the 3-minute mark. Were they an early inspiration for you guys?
Yeah, I mean, that's funny you say that. That's good, because that's what we were kind of going for in that breakdown. We wanted to, like, I think Justice for me, when I didn't really discover them until a year or two ago. And yeah, I wanted that relentless kind of just onslaught, and also that really kind of harsh rhythmic element, like a lot of those kind of French indie electro people were doing, like Daft Punk and Justice were doing, but like really kind of like bold, like really straight up just backbeats and like.
Yeah, it's really driving, but not dumb as well, you know?
Yeah, really musical as well. Yeah. And Justice are a good example of like something that's like really interesting all the way through, even though it is essentially like, you know, like a house or a dance track or whatever you want to call it. The track that I was actually listening to this morning, just to refresh before this podcast, was a funny one, because Mute Math. I don't even know how we came across Mute Math.
Yeah, I don't know. It's like it would have been around that era though when that record came out.
Yeah, this is their first record. This track called Typical, and I think they're like fully independent at that stage. They're this rock band from New Orleans. I'm not sure if you're aware of them.
Yeah, I was going to. Sorry, that was the only thing I was actually going to ask, was out of the whole list, you've got like Flying Lotus, James Blake, and then this one just kind of stood out as like one is not like the others in terms of, I guess, like kind of band.
Yeah. I mean, they became like quite popular on Triple J a few years after with their like third or fourth record, but this is their first album, and I don't know. Yeah, when I heard it, I'm like, this is like such an awesome rock band in terms of how they place everything. Like they're really clear roles for every member of the band. The drummer particularly, same thing. Like really left a set of choices, and very very busy, but not getting in the way of the vocal. And the singer, I just love his voice. He sounds like Sting to me, which I'm a big 80s Sting fan as well. But he kind of has that soaring, like anthemic vocal that can just like can get across like a rhythm arrangement and feel powerful and epic, which I think is like a throwback to all those like 70s rock bands where you had drummers like John Bonham and stuff like that, where the singer could like still overpower them. For me, and the whole record's great.
Yeah. There's one as well. Sorry, I was just looking at this list now that you've got it up, that maybe you might not be aware of. That I only discovered him a few months ago. But this guy, Cussa Overall, his name is. He's like this. He's like a producer and also like a drummer rapper from. I think he's from Seattle, but he lives in New York. But he's a super interesting dude. Like a jazz guy, and plays like a lot of drums for like kind of avant-garde jazz. But he's made these records the last few years that are kind of like, I don't think he's consciously gone for this necessarily, but kind of like a really interesting and good way of doing like a hip hop thing with the jazz elements in a way that's not kind of contrived. You know, it's really worth checking out. I think it's great.
Not like sampling, you mean?
Well, it feels like it's sampled, but I know that he plays it live or gets people to play it. But it's more that it's not like, oh, here's my like whatever Dilla sounding groove with some chopping out over the top. Like it's a lot more kind of considered and like unique kind of take on it. It's hard to describe, but I think it's really cool. And you know, he chops up all these drums. He'll use like great instrumentalists and kind of chop up what they're doing but it still feels like you're not losing the integrity of what the musician did originally. Just really cool. I think that's a good one. That's something that really kind of hit me when I discovered that like a year ago or so.
That's awesome. That's kind of why we why we get our guests to make a playlist, only because there is like Stevie Wonder and Justice, who people have heard of, but it's always nice to kind of get these tracks that people maybe haven't heard of or wouldn't have heard of in another situation. So it's totally.
Yeah.
Beau and Casey, thank you very much for joining us on the show today, and for the players. I really do appreciate it.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you for having us. Yeah, it's fun.
And once again, that's our show. We want to say a massive thank you to Beau and Casey from This Week in the Universe for their time this week. Their most recent singles, Light Years, featuring Golds, and Distance, are out now on all streaming platforms. As mentioned in the episode, they'll have a new EP out early next year, so keep an eye out for that. We've included a link to their website and socials in the show notes, so you can't miss it. We also want to give a quick shout out to Charlotte and Liv from Thinking Loud for connecting us with the band. If you want to have a listen to some of the boys' picks, you can find a link to our Spotify in the show notes. While you're there, you'll find a link to our socials as well. If you've enjoyed today's episode, please go ahead and subscribe wherever you get your pods and follow us on Instagram and Facebook. We'll see you next week.
Ah, the sizzle of McDonald's sausage. It's enough to make you crave your favorite breakfasts. Enough to head over to McDonald's. Enough to make you really wish this commercial were scratch and sniff.
And if you're a sausage person, now get 2 satisfyingly savory sausage McGriddles, sausage biscuits, or sausage burritos for just $3.33. Or mix and match. Price and participation may vary. Cannot be combined with any other offer or combo meal. Single item at regular price.
Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.